Welcome back to the TOWKA Talks podcast. Today I am joined by Trey'von Webster. Trey'von and I go way, way back to our days in high school. Shout out to all the 2011 Keller High School graduates. If you're watching this, what's up? Hope you guys are doing well. Trey'von, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the podcast.
No, awesome to be here. Appreciate you having me on. Yeah, shout out to all the Keller graduates, no matter what year you came from, especially those for 2011. But no, man, super happy to be here and share anything I got.
So go ahead and tell the audience, if they don't know you, a little bit about yourself. Talk about your upbringing and just a little bit about you that maybe people don't know about.
Yeah, definitely. So for those who don't know me, full name Trey'von Webster, but go by Trey, whatever people might feel comfortable calling me. But grew up right in Texas, North Texas to be specific. Fort Worth more so, but to be even more specific, Keller, Texas. That's actually where I met John, where we both went to high school. Parents are from Fort Worth, if that makes sense. And I ended up having a lot of like my summers. I did a lot of sports growing up. Did track and field since I was like 5, all the way up to my senior years of high school. Loved it. Had a lot of sports things like that. And then thankfully had a connection to Fort Worth through my parents, and so I got to see what things are like there. But I also got the privilege of getting an education from a space like Keller, Texas, to where it can be described like as a suburbs, to where there is so much great support around education and things like that. A lot different from where my parents came from, and so definitely grew up with a good perspective of what things can be like if you grow up in different situations, but then also how to be grateful and take advantage when an opportunity presents itself. So yeah, definitely heart in Fort Worth as well as my heart in Texas, or I'll say Keller, Texas. Grew up in, with me. I have an older brother, younger sister, so definitely got to have those around. Definitely learned a lot with siblings and community. Went to high school where I met John. Definitely we both ran on the track team. Some great days, a lot of experiences. I also did football all of my years of high school. Did soccer a little bit. Ended up picking up wrestling, which is really cool. I did a bit of powerlifting, and I think that was it. I consider gymnastics, but I jumped in too late. I could flip, but I was like, it was too late. Obviously, I had a lot of time on my hands, but I loved it. And from there, when I graduated, I think for me, because I grew up with so much sports, I wanted to be an athlete. Like many young high school kids, that was my dream. I either wanted to go to NFL or go to the Olympics. People can't tell, but by me sitting down, I'm like 5'6" on a good day, and so whenever I was looking at my body in comparison to like what the college athlete looks like, even back then to now, I was like, man, I don't think that's my calling, and so I considered. And my brother, he played college football, and he played at up in Kansas, and so I went there. I kind of was just a young kid out of high school trying to find his way. My idea was, hey, you know what? Go to a big college, get a big job afterwards. Ended up didn't have the money to stay. Had to come back into town, into Keller. It was a very humbling moment. For me, I didn't know where else I was going to go. I was really curious so far as do I stay with my major that I chose at the time, which is architectural engineering. I thought that could give me a lot of money. That was my pursuit. And even though I had decent grades, I just didn't have the money to stay in there. And when I came back to Texas, I ended up switching my major again to, what was it, law? It was like law for a little bit. Awesome. But for me, it was a big moment, from high school coming into college and just looking at the world of, hey, I've got, I think it was like 8 grand, no, it was like 16 grand in college debt. And I'm a kid who hasn't even finished college. I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. And like, what's next move? Ended up getting into the workforce, went to school, went to community college. Shout out to TCC. Big shout out to all the community college folk out there. It showed me a different way of life, how life can occur in ways that I don't imagine. From there, went to community college, later transferred to University of North Texas, to where I actually did end up graduating with a major in radio, television, and film. The whole way I came across that is a whole another hour, but I won't bore you with it. But ended up making my major radio, TV, and film. I worked for NBC5, which was an awesome opportunity. Did a short film with some friends. I love making, movies and things like that. I love being creative, but at the same point, for me, my idea of what life should be so far as, hey, I felt like I should make this huge splash in the world pretty quick because growing up in the age of information, social media, you see stars like Justin Bieber and you see, people who just make it big. I know for me it was Bow Wow. All those people who make it big, I thought that's what I needed to do. But with time, I'm like, no, life is different. Life is, it can have a different bunch of challenges. And so for me, after I worked in TV and film for a little bit, I was like, man, I think it's time to settle down a little bit and get something consistent. So I ended up getting a job and a position at my current company. It was my first role. I ended up becoming a registered stockbroker, which is really cool, for an investment firm out here in Westlake, Texas. I know there's a couple of them out here, but ended up getting an awesome job, which is really cool. And as time went on, I ended up making just progressions in the job. Got a promotion, was really cool. For me, I was still kind of wondering what I was doing because for me, I felt like, you know what, I have a gift to, do storytelling or to do stuff like that, which I still do believe I have that gift. But at the same point, it wasn't coming to fruition the way I thought it would. I felt like I was being frustrated because my life wasn't panning out the way that I thought it should, and the steps that I was taking weren't leading towards the ultimate goal that I had. So I ended up actually taking a break from my current company for a little bit. And by break, I let them know, hey, I want to leave. I want to try and test out, this film thing. Gave it a shot, and from there, ended up the pandemic hit. So it was right at the time to where the opportunities were few, which for me, I see it as a blessing because it let me know really quick whether it's for me or not. Came back to my current company. Thankfully, they were open to me. So I was like, all right, cool, I'm here. But in the same point, I'm like, man, Lord, why am I here? I'm praying about it. I'm like, yes, I'm here, but I'm not sure what's going to be fulfilling for me. And lo and behold, as I came back to the company, I worked. I ended up getting another promotion later on as I stayed in there for a minute. And for me, I just, I was enjoying the work. I was like, you know what? Let me stop focusing on my destination, just focus on, being impactful where I am right now. And I think that was something that really did help me with working through and just knowing how to approach every situation with a great perspective and not getting too caught up in the product of what I think things should happen, but more so loving the process of how things occur. With that being said, as time went on, later, I'm just working, doing what I can, trying to think about, what's the next job I might go for. And ends up, I come across a young lady who I met last summer, which, no, actually, yeah, last summer. And ended up, just having a really brief conversation. She didn't give me much of a signal that she was interested, but for me, I'm like, oh, she seems really, really nice. And turns out that young lady is now my wife. And so it's been really awesome. That's like a whole another story I could dip into. But for me, it also kind of gave me that kind of confirmation of there's purpose in every single place and position that I've been in my life, because if things would have worked out the way I thought they should have, I would have never came across her. We would have never gotten to build this beautiful relationship that we have today and that continues to grow. But with that being said, yeah, definitely Texas native, born and raised here, left for a little bit for college, came back, and now I'm in, as people say, happily married. I'll say thankfully married too as well. It's been a blessing. But yeah, definitely been an awesome journey. But at the same point, there's still more to come, which I definitely know.
Dang, man. Dang, that is awesome. So just so you guys know, I reached out to Trey'von recently. Like he said, actually, before we started rolling, we haven't seen each other in a minute. It's been a number of years since I've seen this guy. We stayed in touch a little bit over social media, but I saw a post that he put on Facebook recently, and let me make sure that I get this right, Trayvon. So he met his wife last summer. They go officially on their first date in January. They get engaged in February and married in March.
That is correct. That is definitely correct.
Damn, man, that is, if that's not destiny for you, I don't know what is, because you definitely knew, like y'all both, I'm sure knew, like, yeah, this is it. This is who I want to spend the rest of my life with. Is that accurate to say?
No, it's most certainly accurate to say. It's quite poetic that you say, it's undeniable destiny because her name is Destiny. So it's funny how things come together, but yeah, it definitely is. It was undeniable. I think for me, I knew what I was praying for. I knew what I wanted, or even better put, what would help me. I was very much aware to the type of relationship I wanted to have and the type of person who I wanted to grow and change with, because as humans, we're always growing, we're always changing. Um, I'm not perfect, so no matter whatever relationship I get in, it's not going to be perfect because I'm a part of it. And I think that's something that I also recognize. But at the same point, it's doable, it's possible. And for me, because I had prayed and just became very intentional about the way I chose to go about things, who I put myself around, who I spend my time with. I think as time goes on, one thing you definitely recognize as you get older is that time is non-refundable. It cannot be replaced. It cannot be reimbursed. And so when you spend it in the wrong spaces, you invest it in the wrong places, it's something that you got to live with. And so for me, I just became very intentional about the life I wanted to have, um, who I wanted to be around with, what I wanted, at least, the bare, I say, standard of what I wanted a relationship to be. And man, it's true. It happened quick. I would say, when you look at the timeline, like, dang, like we did just meet, last summer. And then, we had our first date January 6th. And lo and behold, we end up getting married March 5th. And so it's just crazy how things turned around. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things, if you want, I'll definitely go into it a little bit.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So one thing we ended up meeting last summer, and a friend who we both commonly work with, and we met at their engagement party that was in the office. And so they had an engagement party. We ended up meeting, and I met her. And the funny thing was, she was actually avoiding me a little bit. Interesting enough, I was like saying, "Hey, like, how are you? My name is Trey," and she was just very like, "Hi," just like very business, which I appreciate. I don't know, like for me, I really appreciated that. I took the sense of like, okay, she's, very much like, I would say very professional. Even though like that was one of the things that I look for, like, I look for somebody who's professional, somebody, who, is definitely well, I would say versed in like just kind of handling themselves. I recognize that, but then also, as time went on, definitely we didn't talk too much in between there. And then it was right around the end of December, to where things were, pretty much brought back up, started having a conversation. And then on January 6th, we ended up having a date. And the date started at 10 p.m. at a farmer's market. We went out to the 10 p.m. It was like 10 p.m. at a farmer's market. We didn't separate until, I think it wasn't until 6 p.m. that same day. And so, but we were just out, at the farmer's market. I'd actually recently just bought a house. And so, for me, I was kind of looking, to put stuff in my house. And so for me, I like to use a date as efficiently as I can. I'm like, well, in my head, I'm like, whether it's a good date or not, she's gonna at least help me out, pick out some interior stuff for my house. And it was a little bit of like, hey, you know what? If I like what she likes, then maybe this could work. And that wasn't the ultimate thing that I used to decide whether or not we wanted to date. But first date, I'll say I was very intentional about the questions I asked. I was telling you this right before we got things recorded. Was my job, my whole job is talking with people day to day via communication over, whether it's Zoom, chats, no matter what it is. And typically I'm interviewing people and I'm asking them questions to, predict what are they going to do a year from now? What are they going to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now? And so I did have a bit of an advantage in, coming into the dating scene to where it's like, hey, I ask people questions all day, and just to get a gauge of like who they are, like what are their intentions, what are they about. And I think it's one of the things to where if I could give any advice to any younger guy or like to a younger me, or to even an older me, whenever you're out like trying to find, let's say a partner, a spouse, or just an opportunity, don't be afraid of, sometimes having that, challenging conversation at the beginning, which you think could kill the vibe, but what it actually does do is create a safe boundary of, the expectations. And so, yeah, whenever, our first date, first we got along, like it was very, cordial and things like that. And then, just kind of casually, I did bring up like, hey, just kind of, curious, getting to talk about, what are the things that you want, like the things that are non-negotiable for you in your next relationship. And so wanting to hear her out, I shared the things about me. For me, I knew for sure, I was like, hey, my relationship with Christ, like my faith is something that, got me to where I am today, in quote unquote terms of, being able to have, success and being able to have a house, being able to have a steady career, have such a, a great standard of living that is most certainly something that doesn't have to be. But I talked about that as like, hey, I applaud, as I credit all that to, my relationship with Christ. I was like, so if that's something that, that you're not wanting to have in our, relationship, then more respect to you. Like, still, like, I'm gonna, be friendly. We go to the same job, so we're gonna still be cordial. I was like, but this just relationship won't be that, because I want to respect your time, respect mine. And then also, if I'm pretty honest, John, I told her, I was like, hey, and she's like, what are your intentions for this relationship? I was like, or for like dating. I was like, I'm gonna be married in 2 years. Like 2 years time, I know for sure I'm gonna be married. I didn't know it was gonna be quicker than that, but I let her know my intentions. I was like, 2 years from now, I am going to be married. I didn't say whether it's to her, but I knew for sure. I was like, I know I didn't buy this house for nothing. I know I'm laying the foundation to have a family, to do the things that I want. And for me, it's like, I would love for you to be a part of that. But of course, if this is the right fit for you and also the right fit for me. So man, that first date, we talked about everything. We went, after our first date at it was like a bistro space. We went to a spot to get some bistro food after the farmer's market. Then we went to like a spot to where they had some like interior, like just kind of decorative stuff and stuff like that. And it was really cool. And then after that, man, we didn't spend not like more than 1 day apart, so far as like getting together, talking, and like sometimes just like having like it was the weirdest, I would say, in the form of like, it wasn't something like off a movie. Like, yes, we would come together and be so like light and like loving, but also like we would have very serious conversations during our dates. And man, as it happened, like typically in my usual day-to-day work, I spend an hour to predict what's going to happen maybe in the next 5 or 10 years for somebody. So for me, I got more than an hour. I got like about a good 2 solid months to do and ask all of my questions, to interact, to get expectations, ask about her past, her history. What are her expectations? What are some things that I'm coming from? Being very transparent. And with that, man, ended up going from a date on January 6th to married on March 5th. But yeah, definitely interesting journey.
Would you say that this like mindset you've developed like started during your college days or even before that, like in high school? Kind of talk about that as far as like going from place to place, finishing your degree, being in an environment work wise where you feel like this is where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I definitely will say the mindset of, feeling like I'm in the space where I need to be was something that I didn't grasp. If I'm truly honest, I felt like I didn't grasp it until I was really in college. Later, when I got like my job at NBC5, I felt like, okay, things are working out for a reason. And even though it's like still, it's almost like a thing of like building up that trust. But I will say college is where it most certainly did come to reality. I felt like for maybe like the first time so far as what my future could be, there was no like plan. And I'm glad that I know some people, they have like parents who, say, hey, have a plan, have a plan, have a plan. And I think, because life is life, sometimes it's hard. It's hard to know what you want to do super early. Even now, like I still don't know like some of the stuff that could transpire like 3 or 5 years from now. I haven't, hopes, ambitions, and things like that. But I think as I got older, especially in college, I had to settle in and say like, okay, what is it I want my life to be? I think one of at the time, one of my biggest disappointments of not being able to stay at the college that I was at in Kansas, which was Kansas State University, it was like every kid has that college. I feel like a lot of kids have like that college that like they really want to go to, especially like for me coming down here, like in Texas, playing football, like possibly every kid's got like that one college that man, like it's just something about it that just like excites you. That was the space for me. And like that not happening was like something that definitely helped refine me. But I feel like in my life, there's been like so many instances to where I've had unanswered prayers, if I could say, that helped me grow in my maturity. Like I joke about it, the fact that I'm not 6'1", 6'2". For me, as a kid, I can't tell people how much I prayed. I prayed day in and day out. Lord, please, at least make me 6 foot. If not, make me 6 foot, at least 5'9". My dad and my brother are both 5'9", around 5'9.5" or whatever. I was like, if you can't make me 6 foot to send me to the league, at least make me 5'9" to be on par with my dad and with my brother. And man, time goes on, and like I'm in high school, I'm like, okay, come on, it can happen, it can happen. And turns out it doesn't happen. Turns out it didn't happen. Um, and I think for me, just like being really like honest with myself to say like, okay, what you wanted didn't happen. What are you gonna do? Like, what's next? Like, is life over? No. Is the life that you thought you would have had? Is that gonna come to fruition? No. But what are all the other possibilities that life has? And so for me, in college, I did form like that mentality of, okay, where I am is where I need to be. And I might not understand the process of things, but I do trust that there is a divine plan for my life. And that as long as I can trust that that plan for my life is something that is going to get me to like a beautiful future, that as long as I'm doing my part, as long as I'm putting forth the effort, as long as I'm doing the job that I know I'm supposed to do, which can be different for everybody, but as long as I'm putting 100% effort in that, as much as I can, then what's supposed to happen will happen. And then also just being open to the pivot, because life changes. Like, you can't get too caught up on how things. I'll say how things felt like they should have occurred. I'd still be upset thinking I should be 6'1", in the football, in the league, going and getting the Super Bowl ring. But that's just not how it is. And so, yeah, college is most certainly that space to where I have to start like taking more ownership of, saying, hey, you know what? It didn't work out your way. Now let's adjust, let's pivot, and let's still give 100% because there's probably something even better for me. And I think that's the same thing for people in dating too. Like, if that person isn't the person for you, then it's probably because there's somebody who's a better fit for you out there that this is just, holding you back from getting towards. So, yeah.
It's funny you bring that up because I worked at the store today. I worked with two 18-year-olds. They were kind of different paths. One was set on being in the Army, combat medic. He grew up with that atmosphere his grandpa was in, so he grew up going to the basic training, that area. He was set on it 200%. Then the next kid who I worked with, who was 18, he was there with his girlfriend. I asked him, I said, what do you do? He said, I go to community college and I work full time. That's a totally different path than the first kid. But then I asked his girlfriend who was with him, I said, what do you do? She says she doesn't go to school because it's not for her, college wise. And I was like, it was a perfect example of somebody who wants to go into a career immediately after high school, has that path already, but then somebody and or two other people who same age who may not have everything figured out, but are at least doing something and at least waiting for it. Now, I was just like blown away because if I would have known then what I know now, I would applaud them wholeheartedly. Guys, don't go to college if you don't want to be in law or in the medical field because save your money, save your time, save your effort, figure things out. And at least if you are a praying man or woman, pray about it and just stay at peace internally and it will all come to pass. Like with what happened with you. Exactly perfect example.
You bring up a good point because I think, like you said, back then, I didn't know. Like, I would have totally saved myself that bill. I'm still taking care of like student loans and things like that, which thankfully able to get taken care of now. It's something I'm having to work through, but it's a reality that I don't think was necessary. And, it's something that I think that God is using to help keep me disciplined. But I think if I could go back now and really talk to somebody and say, hey, unless you really understand the value that you are going to be getting from whatever program or whatever space or place that you're going to, unless you are very well defined and be okay asking the hard questions of how is this going to help me? How is this going to get me from point A, from point A to point B? And is it going to get me there efficiently and effectively? Because there's a lot of things I think that a lot of people graduating from high school or just going out for whatever it is, they're jumping into it because it looks good. It's what they saw on TV. It's what it looks like the normal path. But it's one of those things to where you jump into it and you're like, man, I could have possibly saved what 10 grand, easy 10 grand a semester if I just would have done my basics at a community college. And hey, you know what? Maybe I want to go into a field that you don't need a degree to be successful in. Maybe I need to go somewhere that I just need the experience. Or maybe I do need to go to a field that has where I need a degree. Is the college that I'm going to be the space that provides me with the best plan to get there? Am I asking people who have gone through that program what's their taste? Just like there's Yelp reviews for for food and things like that, which I'm huge on. It's good to ask people who have gone through the path that you're going through to say, hey, like, what's something that you felt like could have been done better? What's a service? Because these places are meant to service you. It's okay to hold them accountable because they're holding you accountable. When they send you that bill, they don't give you a discount because you didn't get everything you wanted. So you make sure that you are getting everything you want out of it. And like you said, just really being diligent and taking ownership of, hey, this is my time I'm putting out there. Let me make sure that they're using my time wisely. Because if not, let me take my time elsewhere to where it is going to be put to best use and practices. Because at the end of the day, it's not there. I'll say I hold this, and it should be every services job to want to give you the best. I would say the best experience, but at the end of the day, it's not their final responsibility to make sure of that. It's my responsibility. It's their responsibility. It's your responsibility. The person who's going through it. It's your responsibility to make sure that you are getting everything you can out of it. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to sit with you, and you're the one who has to have that conversation with the guy, with the man and the woman in the mirror, and say, you know what, that was on me. And sometimes that can be a hard pill to swallow. So it's taking accountability for the steps and what you're going through. And the moment you're able to, like, people who take accountability for their lives are some of the most successful people you will ever come across. I would definitely say that the people who really are truly successful in life are those who do take accountability for what they can do and know, hey, this is something I could have did better, and are always looking for that way to figure out how they can make sure the steps are taken line up with where they want to go.
I love what you just said, especially about taking ownership and accountability. I feel like a lot of people, especially in the younger generations, go through so much trauma and so much hardships in their life, and then they just feel so defeated and worthless. I just had a friend on recently who talked about how he, growing up, just didn't feel like he was worthy enough to do anything with his life and do anything great. Now he's a successful speaker and does really well for himself and gives back to the community. For myself, I growing up, even the times where I knew you in school, it was really hard for me because I went through this really tough time in my life, which I've been more open about as I got older. Going through a car accident, going through living with a brain injury, going through living with family issues, just all these internal struggles. And growing up, getting more into the adult life, I felt like I wasn't worthy enough to do anything because I didn't have the value inside. I didn't have a community around me, people around me who believed in what I was doing necessarily. They did love me for who I was, but it was like I didn't have the support system that I needed. So what advice would you give to somebody who may be in a similar situation right now that maybe is graduating high school or about to or is in college or dropped out of college? is going from job to job, doesn't know what their career path is, what advice would you give to them if they've been through so much in their life already?
Yeah, I definitely will say it's necessary to acknowledge how you feel in that moment. It's detrimental to ignore the feelings that you have and ignore that, hey, you know what? I don't feel this. Nothing hurts me. I think that's one of the hard things to do because I can't, just say like, hey, you know what? Pick yourself up by your bootstraps. But I don't know. It can be so much harder for everybody. And so, first thing I would tell anyone is like, hey, it's okay to acknowledge that you feel hurt. It's okay to acknowledge that, that you've had some disappointment. It's okay to acknowledge those things because if you never acknowledge it, then you can never deal with it. Now, after that, you acknowledge it. Hey, I'm feeling like I have people that love me, but I don't know if they really believe in me or even if I believe in myself. And if I can just speak from my own experience, that's a bit of the journey. It's a bit of the process. Um, I truly do believe that anybody, and I would say anybody who has life and breath in their lungs has something still to contribute to the world that nobody else can contribute. I believe that everything has a purpose, even though the process may be extremely painful. But with that being said, I think as long as you've got, a day ahead of you and that there is something out there and that you still, if you're able-bodied, like that's something in and of itself to where, you're not locked down to a certain space. There are people who wish they could, be able to move freely. But even with that in mind, I would encourage anybody to, number one, never give up on yourself. Trust in the fact that the people who, let's say, who can or you feel like should believe in you, you first got to make them believers. And before you can make them believers, you have to believe in yourself. And so I will most certainly encourage anybody who feels like, man, I'm not getting a lot of support, especially in the space that I'm in right now. I will say that don't take it too personal that everybody's not believing in you because let's say if I didn't believe in you, John, that is more so a sign of me not first believing in myself. Now, whenever I come across a dreamer, I might not always understand the dream that they have, but if I don't recognize the little dreamer in me, it's going to be hard for me to recognize the dreamer in you. And so I would most certainly encourage everybody who is going and looking to make that next step in their life, really trying and, throwing as many rocks at that wall to, make it come down, but it seems like it's just not moving, to keep refining that belief in yourself. Keep working on that drive. And personally for me, I always tell people, man, if you can, find something to hold on to that you know is unshakable. For me, that's my faith. For me, that's the word of God. That's something to where I know it doesn't change. Obviously, there's different translations, but the principles of it don't change. Find yourself, some good principles that can help you of who you are, what you have to contribute to this world, and then challenge yourself in believing in yourself. That's the biggest challenge I think anybody and everybody has. If I believe in myself that I can, make a grilled cheese sandwich, I don't care who doesn't believe if I can make it. As long as when I get in that kitchen, they're not the ones in there. I'm the one putting everything out there. I'm the one putting the butter on the bread. I'm the one putting the cheese down. And I think that's the thing to where when you believe in yourself, what you're doing is you're showing people that ability to believe in themselves too as well. And so I would encourage anybody to not take it personal. When people don't believe in you, definitely take a moment to just not see it as them not believing in you, but they might just have problems believing in themselves too. I know I'm not the only one who has parents who, didn't necessarily, they might have achieved all their dreams that they wanted to when they were growing up. Your parents, if your parents are still, living and with you, I would say they still have that opportunity. But of course, it can feel harsh. I mean, I remember when I told my parents, like, yeah, I think I want to study film. They're like, okay. They weren't like, oh yeah, that's awesome. You're going to be great. You're going to be this, you're going to be that. And it's still a process. Like, I don't hold it against them because it's not their job it sounds weird, but it's like, it's not their job to give me the motivation. It's my job to get me going. Because if I'm depending on somebody else, then what happens when they're not there? Everything breaks down, everything crumbles. And so for me, I would encourage anybody, challenge yourself to believe in yourself. That is a big challenge there. For me, if I could give a personal thing, as I always, encourage everybody, like I said, to find some good principles to live by and stick to them. Have discipline. Don't get caught up in the fact that you don't see things shooting up quickly. When it's a good principle, it's like a seed. It goes into the ground. You gotta water. It takes time. It takes seasons. But with time, it grows. No tree that you have shade from grew overnight. It takes time. And so whether it's that journey or that, I would say that long-term dream that you're wanting to, go with, see it as a tree with a seed. You can plant that seed, water it, give it time to grow. If for me, I think when it came to like wanting to do film and things like that, I leaned into it too early of trying to live off the seed while it was still a seedling and in the ground. And so now I still write, and I would encourage people like, yes, I work for an investment firm. Yes, I interview people, and that might not seem to have a correlation with my dream of, writing big films or, helping out with entertainment, but it's still a seed. I haven't forgotten about it. It just takes time to water. That's just the thing. Like the biggest trees, they take time to grow. They don't happen overnight. And so I would encourage anybody to not get too down on yourself. Have some grace. Have some grace for yourself. Yes, hold yourself accountable, but don't have the debilitating, accountability to where you're demoralizing yourself. Have some grace for yourself. Keep growing, keep going, and challenge yourself to believe in that dream. And people will thank you for not giving up on your dream, because that actually teaches them to not give up on themselves.
So that seed in me was speaking was actually it occurred actually when we were both seniors in high school. A lady came in and spoke about her son who was killed by a drunk driver. Had no ambition before that to go and share this whole entire story about what I had been through. I'd always kept quiet about it. Those are the really dark days for me because obviously late teens, early 20s were the worst. I won't get into it now because there's not enough time. But that was when the seed was sown. And then I started getting in front of people and started gaining confidence. But the career really didn't take off until just like basically this year. A friend of mine, actually, it's funny you said all that. I've known him now for so many years. He said to me yesterday, Trey'von, literally, I texted him. I was like, bro, I wish I could learn the way you learn. I wish I had the letters by my name, the ability to adapt and the skills and the certifications. He literally texted me back and he was like, bro, you've overcome a damn brain injury. You don't need a certification. You are the certification. And that just ignited a fire in me. And it was like that seed that are like just sprouted inside of me. It's like, you know, hallelujah, the heavens are open. It was like I finally could had eyes to see and ears to hear. And it was one of those like light bulb moments where it was like, you know what? He's right. I don't need to go and search for something. I have everything I need. I just need to be equipped and gain skills and more knowledge. I already have the value and obviously everything else, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it's funny how that works sometimes, and it was totally unexpected. It's
Yeah.
sometimes those moments to where you least expect them that something miraculous or something incredible happens, and obviously you're a true testament to that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing what faith can do, but also what patience does.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. And it's one of those things. Your friend gave you crucial a crucial truth to really recognize, and I hope anybody who hears this recognizes it, that your true value isn't outside of you. It's within you. Like the true value that you have, the thing that you can contribute to the world, it's not something that you got to go necessarily search high and low for. It's in you. Just as I believe like everybody is born gifted. I was talking with a friend about this earlier, but I believe that everybody on this world is born gifted and with the ability to lead. The only thing is the challenge of us recognizing that awesome ability that we have within us. Just like every bird is, well, just about every bird except for some, but every bird is born with the gift to fly. Every fish is born with the gift to swim. Whether you put a bird in a cage or you put it out in the wild, it still has that gift. And I think that's the thing that I would encourage anybody, whether you're at that job that you love or you're at that job that you just most certainly hate, your gift is still in you. It is not too late. It is not too late. That gift is there. It is ever possible to be grown and sprouted into this huge, magnificent tree as long as you don't give up on it. So I would most certainly say that anybody who's out there feeling like, man, if I don't go here, if I don't go there, I'll never be who I'm supposed to be. That's not true. Yes, certain places and spaces have environments that can encourage you, but the ultimate thing that you need is right already inside of you. And if you're willing to take a look and search and seek out what it is, for me, that was connecting with God and letting Him show me who I am and letting Him help me realize who I can be. I'm pretty sure John remember. I didn't talk much in high school. I didn't, I'd see people and I'd like to be friendly as I can, but I didn't talk much. But now at work, people are like, man, we should have you do this. I recently did a national webinar for my whole company, which is awesome. I recently got reached out to for different opportunities, and it's something to where like, yeah, man, I've had people tell me I speak well, but for me, if I'm honest, like I just feel like, yeah, I just do this, and so I would encourage everybody, don't overlook yourself. Don't get so caught up overlooking yourself, knowing that the thing that you need to be successful, it's already in you, but it is like a seed. That's why I tell people find good principles. Seeds need water, they need dirt, they need sunlight, and they need time. Find yourself that water, find yourself that dirt, that environment, get that sunlight that you need, get that information, and then give yourself some time. It's gonna grow, it's gonna happen. And so, yeah, if I could say anything, definitely I would throw that out there.
Powerful, man. Very powerful. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode with Trey'von, please give it a huge thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you didn't watch the last episode, please go check that out. The link will be in the description below. I want to thank Trey'von again for his time, effort, and willingness to help. I'll see you guys on the other side.